I watched a video last night in preparation for my stream. It was 2.5 hours. I did watch it at 2x speed, so I didn't spend quite 2.5 hours watching this. But there's a guy on YouTube that does like military history, and notably after the war in Ukraine, he kind of switched full time to being like a Ukraine war commentator. That's where I know him from. However, he is super lefty. I want to see if anyone can even tell what I'm talking about before I say his name. So he's super lefty, and his takes are usually like super pro NATO, super pro aligned with Ukraine, super pro with the. Okay, Judy Fender already figured it out. Yes, it's the pig. It's LAZERPIG. That's my other pig laser type character that I'm talking about today. And he did a 2.5 hour long video about cultural Marxism, and I listened to the entire thing. The gist of this is that the people on the right are dumber than the people on the left because they're secretly Nazis. And this is not a joke. There's a secret plot in the U.S. to make people into Nazis, and it's being bankrolled by the Kremlin, by Putin, because if everybody in the U.S., all the white people in the U.S. become Nazis, then there will be a civil war, which will be geopolitically advantageous to the state of Russia. So I have from this like 3 minutes of timestamps that I actually feel like are worth sharing. So the 3 timestamps that I want to share from this, let's start at 1:17, I think 52. So this is timestamp 1.
Here. So I've cut this next part down a little because it was outrageously long and very Vive la resistance! What followed from this point was another rant in which I covered a number of things. The representation of trans people and Trump supporters in modern society, how your perception of those people is curated, and generally how easy that is to do. Again, circling back to the do violence in video games cause violence in children, because your mum sees a lot of videos on Facebook. I mean, they are everywhere. My God! Because just taking trans people as an example, there are about 1.6 million trans people in the US. So chances are there are going to be at least 100 of them who are going to be the kind that get up in your face and scream at you. So there's 100 potential videos right there. But you don't need to see 100 videos to have your, shall we say, opinion guided. You only need to maybe see 7. Because, let's be...
Okay, so before he gets to his next point, absolutely not. My opinion on transgenders are not influenced by YouTube videos. My opinion on transgenders are based on my lived experience, and it's really problematic for you to downplay my lived experience, LAZERPIG.
Completely honest with each other. It only took one video of one person that one time, plus the actions of a very minor celebrity that you'd probably never heard of beforehand, to so bigger than that. There was other things going on, so, but that's not true, is it? You didn't see through all that, did you? It's all going back to the whole James Randi thing, that the people who are easiest to fool are the people who already think they are smart enough to not be fooled. Now you take what 4chan did and amplify it, give it the production budget of a nation state and thousands of employees, and well, 6 or 7 videos is all it takes. Alright, it might not be enough to get you on board with the whole genocide plan, but it will help you internalize it if it does start to happen around you. It's not really anything to do with you, is it? And they kind of brought it on themselves, didn't they? The liberals destroy themselves with their own arguments. They flew too close to the sun, didn't they? That is the exact shit they used to say in Nazi Germany. They said the same in the Soviet Union, and they did it to the gays during the AIDS crisis. And they are currently doing it in Ukraine.
So that I know I had a connection issue, so let me summarize what he says again. He contends that Gamergate was a neo-fascist movement that was orchestrated by 4chan, and there was nothing accurate about it. Anita Sarkeesian definitely wasn't selling shitty-ass videos to schools. Zoe Quinn definitely didn't suck 5 to have her shitty slideshow game promoted whatsoever. No, the media did not circle the wagons to defend these people. That's all false, and if your mind believes other, that is simply your hallucination, stalker child. Now, of course, as somebody who actually was there, that is not an accurate depiction. But his point was that as Gamergate was this big thing that was orchestrated just by 4chan, and it had such a significant cultural impact, imagine what Pootler is able to do using as a scapegoat this time instead of a hoe like Zoe Quinn. So he literally says that the 100% of the trans outrage is not based off women not wanting to get, not based off women being in female prisons because they put men in the female prisons. It's not based off actual experiences of abuse and assault and perving in women's locker rooms. It is not based off, people trying to deplatform your site for 13 years. That's all a figment of your imagination. It's actually 7 videos pushed out by the Kremlin.
Minorities, whether that be culture or upbringing or simple racial coding, are clearly not capable of achieving the same level, or they would have done it by now, and are therefore not deserving of things like a university place, and therefore much emphasis is placed on all the white people who deserve to go to university, but who could not because they were not diverse enough to fill the quota.
So his point is that DEI actually really makes sense and only racists are against it. However, when he's doing his spiel about diversity and forced inclusion and how black people due to systemic racism are unable to get into university, and it's not their fault. There's nothing disadvantaged about them whatsoever. It's just that because of historic racism and current systemic racism, they can't get in. And then he uses the line, white people is angry about this and shit. And to show white people being angry about this, he shows a picture of a group of college students walking to university, a stock photo. And he is unable to find a single stock video to accurately represent angry white people. Every stock video he could have picked from has an extremely perfectly diverse cast of characters to represent the university student, because the sheer idea of a white group of students at a university does not exist in media. You just can't even find out about it. I thought that was funny. And then one more, 213. This is very near the end. I have a brain issue where I can never remember numbers for more than a few seconds.
Cremation equipment, waste to energy conversion, Regford structures, as well as for military and facility housing trusted by governments. Oh, me.
So this is a video of this random bread tuber koala bear looking at pitches that were contract bids that were made for facilities to house immigrants before they're deported, and he sees the rows of buildings and he's like, oh crikey mate, this be just like the Holocaust, isn't it?
Oh,
Trump has, and I'll remind you at the time of recording, we haven't even hit the first 100 days yet, has weakened the United States military position considerably, tanked the economy, practically ended its dominance in global trade, and left it vulnerable not only in its position to police its interests across the world, but united almost the entire world against it, as opposed to its enemies. Europe is rearming not to fight Russia, but to defend itself against America. Asia, which was once moving towards uniting with America against Chinese aggression and expansion, is now united with China against America. The only person in the world who has benefited considerably from Trump's administration is Putin. So the question has to be asked: if Trump was a Russian agent, what more could he have possibly done? Look, maybe
How about lifting sanctions on Russia, bro?
I was wrong. Maybe color revolution theory does in fact exist. Maybe it does actually work. But maybe it wasn't the left who was the target. Maybe all this time, it was the right. Maybe y'all just got cultural Marxist by Putin. Or maybe the right just won the culture war, and maybe I really am coping and seething. Ooh, who knows? So go ahead. Post your little Pepe. You won. Well done. You deserve it. Good for you. Because as James Randi once said, and I've said it several times in this video already, some of the easiest people to fool are the people who think they are smart enough to notice if they were being fooled. And
So that's his main thesis of his video. that it was indeed, there was a conspiracy to infiltrate the academics of the United States and implant in fertile young minds conspiracy theories designed to weaken the fabric of society. But it is in fact you, Stalker Child, who has fallen for Kremlin antics. And indeed, it did come from Russia, but not the Soviet Union, not from the Frankfurt School, but from the Kremlin itself, Stalker. I feel that the reason why he believes this, and I've noticed this, I've called this out with Destiny, and I think it applies equally to LAZERPIG. Destiny and LAZERPIG are 100% in line with the status quo, because only the status quo could have enabled them to exist. If you don't know, LAZERPIG is a big fat gay man from Europe, and what he basically does as a hobby is he backpacks through Europe trying to find as many as possible. He's just a human dump, and on the occasion he starts up a video about Ukraine and talks about how Russian tanks suck or whatever the fuck, and that's his YouTube channel. And similarly to Destiny, who is a carpet cleaner by trade that just so happens to have found a career path that enables him to take and various BPD horrors continuously. There is only one existence in which, one reality in which they would be allowed to live these lifestyles unimpeded, and is the one that we currently live in. And I believe that they're aware of this either subconsciously or consciously. And they know that if there's any dramatic change to the way that society works, that they're going to be very disadvantaged by it. Nobody wants these people around. Like if you're rebuilding society to be a better society, and you have absolute authority, it doesn't matter if you're a communist or if you're a fascist or whatever the is that you are. Nobody has a spot for LAZERPIG and Destiny in their upper echelon, making the money and having the clout that they currently have. So they know that if change comes, it will not benefit them. It's impossible for it to benefit them. So, and then when you think about it like that, all their positions make sense. Why do they defend the status quo? Because the status quo benefits them. Why do they support Ukraine? Why do they support NATO dominance? Because only the United States and only the West in its current incarnation can give them the status quo and would give them the status quo. So therefore, it needs to remain on top militarily forever and ever. And that means crushing Russia and any other country that tries to thwart the Pax Americana. How can you backpack through Europe if Europe is a war zone, right? So there needs to be Pax Americana, and it needs to be enforced by these liberal democratic countries that that allow them to exist. And he can't renege on any of these other policies of the status quo, because once you start getting choosy, then you can get really choosy. Like if you were to relent on immigrants, then you really have to think, well, what else is the status quo wrong about? Why don't we take a double look at gay marriage? Then you're in some issues. And it's the same thing with gays. It's like, if we start saying that men can't dress up as women and peeve on women in women's restrooms, then who's to say that we can't allow that maybe gay bears going around Europe collecting pot? Maybe that's also bad. So any kind of backtracking is undesirable to these people. And their entire worldview is centered around what has enabled them to make a lot of money and live a lifestyle that they choose without really having to do anything that contributes to society. And they're frustrated because they're losing, not just in terms of the right, but also the left. People on the left, or especially people who are not real Americans, they will look back at history, say everything about Americanism was wrong and want radical reforms in terms of like socialism. And then people on the right look far back and say, well, maybe everything after the 70s was bad with, that's like the baby take. Like everything after the 70s was bad because that's when cultural Marxism started. And then some people go back further and say, you know what, we can go all the way back to the New Deal and our involvement in World War II. And that kind of stuff is what's scary to somebody like LAZERPIG, because he knows that he is adapted. He's like one of those animals that exist on a single hill in Madagascar surrounded by a river bend, and no other ecosystem in the entire world can support them besides that little speck, that little 1 kilometer area that permits this rare, exotic, super adapted species to exist. That's LAZERPIG. Any changes in the ecology will kill them.